Okay, I need to get ready around the mic for this because this is okay. But this I vow, all gods that hear me this night, be you Satan or some heavenly force, though I walk in the shadows of hell itself, though I may die again and again, nothing shall keep me from rising from my tomb. Nothing, nothing, nothing! I'm Eddie Webb,
And I'm Chris Spivey.
and today we talk about the final issue of Tomb of Dracula. I swear, for no other reason to do this run than has been to I get such joy out of these quotes. They are
More and
so
more,
much
I
fun
can
to read.
see why the Doctor considers vampires to be the ancient enemy of the Time Lords.
Because they're just like
from
the Time Lords.
just from their bombast.
Oh, it's so good. So here we are, the final issue of our run. This is just an arbitrary point. To be honest, it came down to which episode did the Blades show up in? 10. Cool. Let's add 6 issues from there, and that's our run. Um, but retrospectively, it's turned out to be a nice chunk of watching a comic evolve from one state to another state. It also happened to be more or less the start of Marv Wolfman's specific run on it. So there's lots of reasons why, in retrospect, this has been a good chunk of comics to get into. Um, and I won't ask yet what your overall feelings are because let's say that for after this issue. But this one has certainly been it's been fun to watch a team start to kind of coalesce, right? And we're definitely hitting a team that's finally finding its stride, I think, in this issue.
Agreed. And it's been interesting. That's all I'm going to say right now. I would be interested actually in trying to find another similar run, not necessarily of Dracula, but where a team came together on a title that was already in progress to try to save it and make it into something else for another 6 issue beat, just to sort of see how the evolution of that mirrored this evolution and what they possibly did differently.
I I want to say I feel like Luke Cage went through a similar evolution because I feel like that was just kind of bits and pieces, and then a team found its footing. Um, New Mutants, actually, now that I say that, actually, New Mutants might be a really good one because New Mutants was a very different team at the start. And then when Sienkiewicz gets on the book, that's when that specific team clicks and handles a good long run. So that might also be another possible example. Yeah, there have been a few examples of
Did,
it.
didn't the Titans have a similar thing happen too?
No, well, the new Titans, the Marv Wolfman run that started off with Marv and George Perez pretty much right out of the gate. Because they actually, I was reading this was a couple years ago, but I was reading the big compiled versions of those, and the very first one has the promo comic did it because apparently what happened was they did like 3 issues before the first one went live, and DC was a little nervous about reactions to it, so Wolfman and Perez actually did a quick mini comic, kind of, which actually basically would have been issue 0 in modern parlance, but they didn't really have that idea in the 80s. And they stuck that comic into a whole bunch of other comics. It's like literally kind of just stapled it into the middle of those comics. It's like 8 pages long, um, to get people excited about buying issue 1 of the Teen
Yeah.
Titans book. So yeah, that was pretty much that team out of the gate.
I guess
But
an obvious example then, since I was thinking about the Titans, is that we could just do it where Claremont takes over for the X-Men.
well, that's true, yes, because Claremont does not pick up the first couple of issues of the rebooted X-Men, does he? That's yeah, no, yeah, that might be actually a possible run because certainly it is a very uneven book for the first few issues. Put it that way.
Yeah. All right, so just future idea for Speechless. If people have any thoughts on that, you can let us know.
Yes, yes, or even non superhero runs. We're doing a lot of superhero comics just because, but you and I both love. But I mean, there are other comics, that could be fun to talk about. Like I especially something like say Hellboy, because Hellboy are very convenient 4 to 6 issue arcs. Something like that might be fun to do too.
I thought you were about to pull out Love and Rockets for a second.
Well, I actually have been reading Love and Rockets recently. It's actually not bad.
I did not know that.
Well, I don't talk about it much, but like, because Love and Rockets, for those who don't know, Love and Rockets is an indie comic, a black and white comic, done by two brothers, and they basically both do completely different casts of characters that occasionally interact, but also it's a comic in real time. So they've been doing it for 30 years, and so the characters have aged. And so one of the threads is about a girl in a punk band in the 80s, and watching her come to terms with her ideology changing and shifting as she gets older, and how her body shifts and changes, and how people perceive her differently. It's a really fascinating journey. So yeah, I love Rockets is great, but also it's a slow burn. That's the only problem. Is I can't really do like
Yeah,
6 issues because not a ton happens
a
in
lot
6 issues, right?
All right, well, we'll keep that in mind. We could go and do your favorite then. We could go do Judge Dredd.
We could again. That would be we have to figure out a way to kind of approach that, because each issue of that is 7 pages, as it were, because it's part of an anthology comic. But I mean, honestly, doing 6 issues of just 2000 AD and being like, cool, some of these stories are going to be in the middle of a story, and just kind of showing what it's like to read an anthology comic. That may also be fun, actually, because I have a few years of 2000 AD.
Funnily enough, that word is my exact thought on this comic that we're about to cover. Is it feels like a Dracula anthology.
Yeah, this one is a bit weird. Like I said, I did say this is a comic where I feel like the team's finding its footing, only because they're willing to experiment. But this is we'll see. I don't know if this is as successful as perhaps they thought it was. But first, we have the cover with a guy who's shooting a bat, thinks shooting a bat, but accidentally kills a vampire. So Dracula dies again. This is the second time Dracula has died in 6 issues. But also, they have three little gun sights of the bat, one coming and then being shot and then dying. And the bat in the middle is so surprised that he has been shot. The giant eyes are like, "Arr!" It's amazing.
It's funny that's what you choose. I choose a third bat that's been shot and is falling. It's like, oh, they got me. Is what reads goes through my mind as I see it.
Got me, partner.
But the look on that guy's face, so that gets to shout it out too. I shot a bat, but I killed a vampire. Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and this is again peak 70s comic book. Like there's a sound effect, like patam, two word balloons, and then there is a caption box which answers the question, but how long will vampires stay dead? It's just like this is basically just a comic book page. It just slapped a logo on it.
Oh god.
Not my favorite cover.
So it is not my favorite cover, but it is not the weakest cover of this run. That would still be
No.
last issue.
Yeah, yeah. That was definitely um a choice. This at least it tells a story, and there's a flow here, even though they kind of have pseudo panels in there. But yeah, there's at least the staging of it, like the Dracula being dramatically on the ground, his head lolling back to look at the reader. That's extremely well framed. I really love that.
And the shadow around his mouth makes it look like blood's possibly coming out, but it's probably not blood because they couldn't do it on like probably approved by the Comics Code Authority.
Right, which
Nicely
once again
done.
is very clearly in top right corner.
And even the second bat that you pointed out when it's shot, that's not probably not blood. It's just a gun impact because the third one shows like the same sort of red things sort of spiraling out of it. Maybe it was
Right.
blood, but then no, it's not because I look at it closer and the gun barrel itself has red going up from it.
Yep.
Cheeky. Love it.
So they have lots of ways to evoke what they can't do on the page, but you know what's happening. And that's one thing I kind of enjoy about this 70s era comic code stuff, is that having them creatively try to work around these restrictions to still get the effect of what they want to cross without crossing that line is just fascinating. It leads to some visually interesting and occasionally straight up good looking art.
Well, one of the things we pointed out previously is that constraints are not the enemy of greatness.
Mhm.
In fact, they force you to think differently within certain confines that frequently can improve what you're doing.
Exactly. So this issue was released this is September 11th, 1973. Uh, Again, the same team as last time. Writer by Marv Wolfman, penciled by Gene Colan, inked and colored by Tom Palmer, lettered by John Costanza, and edited by Roy Thomas. So again, we have now a stable, established team. And we cut to the front page where, because we're still in London, so inevitably we're going to picture a Big Ben, that very dramatic upsketch of Big Ben and Dracula, huge looming over Big Ben. And apparently it's autumn now because, September comic, so it's an autumn, which kind of implies the comic runs real time, um, which is interesting. Don't know if that's true or not. Um, but it's autumn is the season for things dying. Autumn is a fearful time of year for living and undead alike. And we see we're in some kind of underground crypt because we have actually a really well drawn shot of a staircase going down, and it's actually curved around. You see rats crawling over it, and the whole thing looks really very kind of organic and detailed in a way that I love when Gene Colan gets excited about drawing something. You could tell because he gets really into it, and that's he really drew the hell out of this underground passage, which is a half page panel, but it looks really exciting.
Would you hang that up on the wall?
Kind of, honestly, yeah. It's really not bad. Um, and it leads to, this extremely elaborate underground lair, lots of curved arches, and Dracula sitting at a desk, and he's writing, something, it's clear that the captions here are actually Dracula, writing in his what he calls his personal ledger, which is a weird choice of words.
Well, come on, Eddie. He's a grown ass vampire. He can't save my journal.
This is my live journal. My
Come
blog,
on.
Dracula blogs. I would read
It
the hell out of Dracula's blog, honestly.
it would only be better if, much like in Twin Peaks, there was a little bitty notebook that he closes and puts a little lock and key on it, like Lauren's diary.
Yes, it's got hearts on it. Um, but he says something here which is fascinating and is a weird if it's true, it recontextualizes the entire comic so far in a way that's really interesting. It says, "The very precepts of truth-telling sicken me, but still must be written as the facts themselves were presented." So Dracula hates telling the truth, which explains so much of his posturing in all the previous issues we read, and I love it. Um, so, and also he makes a comment that I've been reborn like the phoenix many times. So this him dying, come back to life thing has happened a lot. So that's something we're going to kind of talk about here in a minute. But when he first had the stake pulled out in issue one, it was unclear how long he'd been dead. It was kind of implied that the events of the novel Dracula ended, and then we pick up in 1973. So he'd been dead for a long time. He's never said exactly how long he's been dead. Never explicitly said anywhere. It's just kind of filling in the gaps. But because it says he's died, reborn many times, we're establishing that actually, no, Dracula's probably had a ton of adventures before we check in on him in 73.
Which then infers the fact that he is not that good at being a villain.
No, he gets killed a lot.
Yeah, like for all those powers, killed a lot. It does not.
And I like it because, I mean, it comes down to, okay, this comic's doing really well. And also we have a spin-off magazine comic. So we making room to have more kind of prelude adventures makes sense. And I feel like this is probably Wolfman going, I need to explain how the stuff in Dracula, a lot of Dracula Lives stuff, if I remember, were prior to 73, like flashbacks. So I think it was the how can we justify having all of these adventures? So let's just kind of explain that. Um, But it does invalidate. We talked before about how the comic did a couple of issues of really building up. Hey, they killed this guy, and that's really important. And now it's like, yeah, but he dies a lot, so it's not that great. um, and then so Dracula's gonna basically he's gonna sit down and list both his strengths and weaknesses. Like you have pros and cons. List your strengths and weaknesses. Why you want this job, what you're good at, what you're bad at, and make sure the job is tailored for you. Um, and he says, whether I'm born of human flesh or vampire blood, I'm still Dracula, and that is all I ever asked to be. And that's just great because Dracula in this comic specifically, no matter what, he is 1000% himself. He is nobody else. He is exactly this guy. And as much as you can make analogies for Dracula to characters like, Doctor Doom or Moriarty or what have you, there's a lot of overlap in the space he is. We've seen over these 6 issues, Dracula is a distinctive and unique character, and he's unapologetic about who he is, and I kinda love that about him.
Well, come on, Doctor Doom is unapologetic about who he is.
True, true. But Doctor Doom also does lie to himself a lot. Dracula lies a
And
lot, but not about himself. He knows
I,
who he
I
is.
I do love that specific fact they pointed out that this is no place for lies in my ledger.
Right.
To hear him like write everything out like that is incredible. Although,
Mhm.
and then I think about it that I see all the water and everything in that damp place where he is. He's writing in a notebook, Eddie. What happens when you leave paper out in a damp, wet place?
It stays
How long does
perfectly
that
pristine. It
last?
doesn't it doesn't at all mold or crinkle up or cause problems. No, it's just fine. It could be
And
vellum.
then I'll pull out someone else who is also always knows who they are, and this one I don't think lies to themselves. Would be Empress Rex,
Oh, no. Namor also is absolutely himself.
and Namor doesn't lie to himself,
No. He may, and I say may means he does, have an overinflated opinion of himself.
much like
But if
Dracula.
he right, but if he gets defeated, he's like, "Nope, you got me. I don't know how. That doesn't seem possible, but you did, so let's acknowledge that."
And so I think part of the that I'm having with these is someone that inherently likes heroes better than villains or even anti-heroes. It is harder for me to follow along and care about Dracula. So I am amazed that this comic had such a long run and generated a spin-off comic for it. Like that is
Right.
utterly fascinating to me. And part of it is seeing this makes me realize they're trying to humanize a character that is not really human anymore to keep that readership up.
Right. So I had talked before about how this comic has reached kind of a heavy serialized phase. This is a hard right turn because, like you said before, what ultimately the Dracula Reading Store is ultimately a framing device. We're going to do a short anthology of much shorter stories here. Um, but I think you're right. One of the things that this kind of is doing is like let's take a breath. We had a 3 issue run of more or less ongoing shenanigans. Let's take a breath and really dig into Dracula as a character. Um, Humanize is a slightly awkward word because like he doesn't come out of this comic looking like he's any better of a guy. No, he's still Dracula. But
You're
again,
you're inferring
mhm.
you're inferring my use of humanize in a good way.
Oh, okay, I see. I was
Humans
actually,
are
yes.
capable of all sorts of evil and atrocities.
Right. Um, I wouldn't even go to say that he's a more complex character after this anthology, right? But certainly, you get his perspective more. I think that's what the comic needs at this point in time. It's like he's as much fun as it's been. Ultimately, he has been the antagonist for a group of humans, and it's just we happen to follow his viewpoint every now and then. But really, he's still the villain of this series, even if he is the protagonist. Those are not incompatible concepts. Um, this is where the comic it seems like it's starting to shift to okay, no, he's a viewpoint character. He's not a hero, but he's a viewpoint character. So we need to actually give you his viewpoint. So I think it's a good choice to make here. Um, and so he goes into a story where he mentions, yeah, I died 2 years ago. It got me thinking about another time where I died.
And see that is for humanizing. That is one of the points where you humanize. Like if something tragic almost happens to you, people automatically begin to reflect about their lives and their choices.
Yeah. Actually, I hadn't thought about that specific point, but that's a really good point. It's the if you have a near death experience, it is very common to take stock.
Yes.
So
And
that's
that's
wow. I
not
actually thought that's really
a
cool. Yeah.
positive or a negative thing. It's like, ooh,
No, no, that is actually a really good point. So, so this is not as out of nowhere as it perhaps might seem. That's actually I hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, you're right. No, that's if you damn near die in a car wreck, you're gonna think about what's my legacy? What have I done?
yeah.
What have I left to the world? And of course, Dracula's case, it's like, was I evil enough?
Yep.
Did I fuck up enough shit? I don't know if I have.
Do I need to make more vampires dominate other
Right.
villages of people?
Because, man, um, and, but I mean, to also to your humanizing point, it starts off with him flying around in bat form, and he's talking about how it's badass to be a bat. It's awesome. You fly around and you feel the chill wind as it rushes past my leathery wings. It's the ecstasy of vampirism, the serenity of being undead. It's like this is cool, man. And I love that.
Laszlo
Love it
thinks
for
so
him.
too.
um, so the narrative at this point in time, Dracula writing is now taking over the captions. The captions are Dracula who's writing, and then when Dracula speaks, he speaks. So we're getting again, this is Dracula's viewpoint character. But even Dracula as viewpoint character can't not be Dracula because gunshot, some half-witted human trying to shoot me. I felt the unbridled surge of laughter fill my throat as the diabolically clever plan entered my mind. It's like someone's shooting at me. I'm gonna go fuck him up.
This goes back to a point I made early on in this run. Dracula has all these eternal nights. He's got nothing else to do, so he's obviously just looking to fuck around and burn some time.
Right.
This
Again,
this entire issue is that.
no, no, totally. I mean, we've had a few issues with Dracula being vaguely a planner. You and I disagreed about how successful that planning was, but now we're right back to Dracula's petty bitch. It's great. Someone shot at me. I'm not just gonna fuck this guy up. I'm gonna make his life miserable. um, so the hunter shot down a bat, and so the guy's like, "Oh, there's that bat I've been looking for months." And so he picks the bat up, and the bat gets heavier and heavier as he puts it over his shoulder because Dracula turns into a human while the bat slipped over his shoulder.
Eddie, how big is this fucking bat when Dracula transforms?
I know it's huge. It does look like he's starting to transform as he's been shot. I will say that because if you look when he's falling to the ground, his face starting to shift and change even from the previous panel. So it looks like he started to shift as he's falling to the ground.
Look
But
look at the
this bat
Bam
wasn't.
shot. Look at the
Mhm.
Bam shot when he's in his sights. Look how fucking big that bat is.
That's true. So it's pretty huge. That's a fair point.
How,
Um,
how I so they've drawn Drax as a bat before. Never before in the issues we've read, to the best of my recollection, has Dracula been that big as a fucking bat.
that's true. Okay,
I
so
wouldn't shoot that bat. I wouldn't fuck around with that bat, Eddie, even if I was a hunter. That thing's ginormous.
and here's another thing that I don't know how much of this is Dracula's unreliable narrator and how much of this is Dracula being a petty bitch. It genuinely can go either way, right? But I just realized rereading this, the way it's framed is you have the sights, it's on Dracula, you see the bam sound effect, and the next panel he's starting to fall to the ground, third panel he lands on the ground. But what Dracula says is someone trying to shoot me, right? So is this Dracula going, I've been shot, but I immediately have to make it seem like I didn't get shot because I'm too cool for that and justifying his own bullshit? Or did this guy genuinely miss and Dracula said, this guy tried to shoot me, so I'm going to pretend to be shot, fall to the ground as a bat, just so I can change to human form after he picks me up so I can attack him that way because that would be funny. And I genuinely don't know because both of those are compatible to Dracula in my mind.
They are, but I'm inclined to go with the first one
Mhm.
because I'm going to use the word honor here very loosely. Dracula has had a sense of honor and his own code up to this point that doesn't dictate that if he'd miss Dracula would bother to waste his time to kill a petty human and fuck
Right.
with him
It's
this
the
way.
you tagged me, so now I have because you have tagged me, I now have to ruin your life.
Yes, and the trying part is him trying to disregard that this human actually was able to hit me because I'm too cool.
Right. Right. I think I'm inclined to agree with you on that point. Um, uh, 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 it may also be in this case, you try to shoot me as a euphemism for try to kill me. That may be the other way to kind of read that. But certainly in my heart, I feel like Dracula going, "This motherfucker shot me. I gotta ruin his life now," feels more true.
Yeah, because I keep
How
thinking about the
dare you?
bikers from that issue that
Yes,
beat Dracula
exactly,
down, and
exactly.
I think the one that got away is someone that didn't really engage in the beating, but it was sort of there.
Right. And he did leave him alive.
Yeah, he
Um,
let him prove himself, and then he left him.
right. Um, Dracula turns to human form, um, and starts beating this guy up, and he's just mad at humans. It's like, "You're like all the other humans. They're sniveling, disgusting. It angers me to think that I depended on you." So Dracula's having a bad day, and he's taking out on this guy. And then, mm, this is the bottom of the page, so it's before a page flip, which makes it even better, is this guy's like, "I don't know who you are, but bullets will kill you like everyone else," and we all know at this point in time that is just not true. But by putting it at the bottom of a page is that moment of like, "Yeah, bullets will kill you." "Oh, no, bullets didn't kill you." It's a great moment of unintentional humor. Well, I think it's intentional humor, but it's not played for humor. It's just happens to be humorous because of the way it's structured. Because he's like, "You're supposed to die." And so Dracula destroys his rifle. He's like, "I could slay you, but I'm gonna hunt you down. You hunted me, now I'm gonna hunt you." That's fair. That's totally
Well,
fair.
we all know that man is the most dangerous game, Eddie. Every movie that was made taught us that.
Right. And Dracula is no man, Chris. Dracula is the undead.
Ah,
And so he brings another classic power, which I don't think we've actually seen until this point, which is he summons rats. I don't think we've actually
love
seen that
it.
yet.
I don't remember it, but I love it.
Yeah. Um, and the
Which also
guys go ahead.
gives extra context to the rats now in this cavern where he keeps his personal journal.
Yep. Yes. There's a lot of foreshadowing to it. Although a bit dodgy because he starts running away and the guy's like, "Oh, those rats. He summoned rats." Like, how do you know he summoned rats? Just rats appeared. You're in a forest. Rats could just be here, but let it slide.
Eddie, you
Mhm.
literally see this dude turn from a bat, destroy your gun with his hand, has big ass fangs, and then turns to a bat and flies away. I think like 1 plus 1 does equal 2 in there for deducing.
My rebuttal is that none of his previous victims have been nearly that knowledgeable. But
Because
maybe
none
this
of them
guy's the
are a
exception.
hunter, Eddie. None of them know the woods, know how animals act.
Every inch in his woods. And specifically it's spelled incha. But then he's like, "Yeah, I lost the rats. Oh shit, he summoned wolves."
Because
That's
Dracula's
just
a cheaty bitch.
that was just Dracula going, "Okay, cool, he's been level 2 power, I don't care." It's so good. And that's it. And then the dragon goes, and then I killed him. That's the whole story. So Dracula's in his journal, and he's just like going, this guy shot me, and then I summoned rats, and that one's good enough. So I had summoned wolves, and then I ate him at the end. I'm happy.
How else
This
would
is
his personal
Dracula's burn
stories
book.
go?
Oh my
It's
gosh,
not
no, this
like
is Dracula's burn book. Mm.
it's not like in his story he'd say, "And the guy escaped me." That's not going to be
Right.
Dracula's book.
No, no. It's like this was a guy where he was eating my wolves. It was so funny. um but then he cuts to the ironies of birth, which there's a couple of panels about a story that's actually in Dracula Lives 2. But
Wait,
that
wait,
basic
before you get into that and you become very pertinent, I want to ask you one question.
sure.
What color is that woman's hair?
Oh, look, it's blonde. And
You
it was
were
the
saying.
Specifically, it was a Romany witch who turned him into a vampire. So maybe that's where Fixation of Blondes came from. I had noticed that before. Now maybe it's a thing. So basically, he was slain on the Transylvanian battlefield. A Romany who actually turned to be a vampire um, turned him into a vampire. Then the guy who killed him as a mortal killed his wife, Maria, who I think is the actual blonde hair. I think actually Maria is supposed to be the blonde hair. It's a little hard to tell. And then so Dracula killed Turek. So that's a lot of stuff crammed in 2 panels. But that
Yeah.
I believe that's basically more or less Dracula's origin story.
I wonder before they killed Maria if they had made the hills alive for the sound of music.
I was thinking more how you solve a problem like Maria.
Well, each of their own, I guess.
Different musicals. Um, and then so he's like, yeah, I loved Maria. Maria loved me. And back in my day, marriage used to mean something. And then he goes off on a story about a guy who tries to murder his wife because he's like, those
Because
damn kids don't respect marriage anymore.
oh my god, Dracula's an old man telling kids to get off his lawn. Oh, what
Yes.
the hell has happened?
For marriage had not the sanctity it had in my day. And like, it's like this whole page because all of this is just one page, right? From the guy getting eaten by wolves to we're starting the next story is all one page, but it really comes across as stream of consciousness. But again, to your point, like when I first read it, I was like, this is just kind of random, and I get it. Marv's just trying to do some stuff here, but now that you said it, it does actually track to traumatic experiences. Your brain free associates a lot in after those moments.
Yep.
So I've actually grown to appreciate this issue more as we start talking about it than I did when I first read it.
And some of
But
this,
yeah,
so I mentioned before how I like old radio shows,
hmm
and each of these almost feels like an old radio show as Dracula is thinking through them. As I was reading, I kept thinking, this is just like
yeah,
a radio show that I listen to.
yeah. I actually see that. Um, these do feel like those, particularly those old horror radio shows
Yep.
where like they have like 20 minutes to try to tell the whole story, and so it's just kind of and then he died,
And if people that haven't heard them, they are surprisingly good and totally engaging. Love it.
yeah, yeah. And this one actually, by that analogy, is kind of the true crime, if you will, your Dragnet style story about a man who tried to. It's Kitty and Richard. Kitty wants to divorce Richard, and Richard's like, "Yeah, but I want your money. So I'm gonna drive you out in the middle of nowhere and pull a gun on you and try to shoot you." Um, and he's like, "Yeah, but." She's like, "I'm about the divorce papers," and he's like, "I'm not. I want your money." And she's like, "Okay, forget the divorce papers. It's fine. Just let me go." Um, and so he shoots her, she falls off a cliff, and Dracula is just like, "Oh, hey, you're still alive? Cool. Let me drink your blood."
It's better than
It's
that. It is so much better than that because he
oh, yeah,
stops.
it
Do
is.
you want revenge? And if, I
Yes,
bet if she said no, he'd be like, all right, peace out. But she said yes. And he's like, more tomfoolery.
right. So, Richard goes back to, the girl he's stubbing, um, Cindy, and it's like, "Everything's ours now," and she's like, "Hey, don't tell me about it because A, that doesn't get me off at hearing you murdered your wife, and B, I'd rather have plausible deniability. It's just, I'd rather not know what happened there."
Yep.
Um, so I like that in that short exchange, we're establishing that Cindy's probably also using Richard to get his money, which means
Mhm.
that if this had not happened, she probably would have ultimately tried to kill him. So I kinda like that implication of if this had been a radio show, a full radio show is probably how that would have played out, but Dracula has been randomly interjected into the story, and so instead, the wife literally knocks on the door and say, "Hi, honey, I'm home. I'm a vampire," and murders him.
And this is also leading into a vampire trope, though, where don't you want to invite me in? I think is what she says somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
which goes back to vampires can't necessarily enter your home unless you invite them in. And it would be his house now since she's dead. But he's at the door.
Right.
That is why if you open your door, you keep a little bit of distance. I'm just saying. Vampires kill you.
Right.
This
And then
reminds
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, finish up.
This reminds me of one of the radio shows I was listening to that was a supernatural horror one that had a writer who had made like a super famous book, who was his first one. His second one he was having problems with, but the woman in the book eventually becomes almost like a living sentient thing that comes out of the book, and he sort of has like an affair with her that troubles the wife, and somewhere along the way he gets murdered by that character, and so the
Oh,
wife ends
cool.
up with the house and everything else. And so it's reminds me of that in the same sort of way where like the wife gets her own revenge in the end, but it's all mystery and supernatural. Instantly reminded me of that story. I gotta find that
Yeah,
again.
no, totally. Um, and then we have an interesting thing where Dracula finishes the story, but he's not talking in caption boxes. Instead, we actually see him literally writing, and talks about how Cindy understood that his followers were many. Um, and then he starts talking to himself because it's Dracula. So I completely believe he talks to himself. Um, and then the ironies and deceptions within deceptions, wheels within wheels. Uh, and then you think, what better form of deception than one that benefits me? And it's like true. There is no better deception in Dracula. That is a correct factual statement. But he talks about, but actually, I've been the victim of deceit too. I've also been tricked. I don't want to. It still gnaws at me that someone actually got one over on me. And then we get to the third story where an old man summons him. And it, how he summons Dracula, you just gloss over it. It's like, we just immediately jump into, old man, you summoned me. Why? I'm Dracula. I'm going to kill you if you don't tell me why. Um, and so the old man explains that he is he's Roman from Roman times. So he's an immortal who's lived for centuries. Uh, um, and he was lost from his troops in ancient Britain, which kind of implies he may have been part of the so-called Lost Legion. I think it was the Fourth Legion. But there's famously a legion of Roman soldiers that got lost in Britain. Um, so could have been him. Um, but he finds a pool of blood in Britain, like you do. It's just it goes into the cave, and there's just a pool of blood there. It is the blood of everyone who has ever died in the history of the world.
It's a big pool.
And it's like, I love the idea of that, but also that pool is way too small to blend literally everyone who's ever died. And also, how does it get refilled? Does it expand? I mean, because it's just people die very fast. I mean, it's gotta be hugely changing.
It's like a TARDIS, Eddie. You
It's just a
dive in,
pool
it's
of blood.
larger.
Time traveling pool of blood. But he explains that his name is Orpheus. He's been alive for 1,700 years, which is, I will point out, over 3 times as long as Dracula's been alive.
Which is why he was able to trick Dracula, to deceive Dracula. He has more experience.
Right? Because Dracula's the youngin in this encounter. And so he's like, I have secret immortality. And Dracula's like, but I'm already immortal. But I'll let you continue. I'm totally not interested in anything you're saying, but you can continue because I think it's entertaining. I'm totally not interested. Not interested in all. Just keep talking. um, and so basically, it's like the pool of blood. I'm becoming. I look at an old man because it's losing its effects. I have to go back to the pool of blood to rejuvenate. I need you to take me there because I'm not able to get there. But it's a pool of blood, so you can drink from it too, and you also become immortal because it's blood and you're a vampire. Um, and because it is fueled by the blood of everyone who's ever died, that means that Dracula essentially get an eternal source of blood. He would never have to hunt again. He would have eternal blood forever. And so it seems like a good deal. Um, and basically Dracula's like, so why me? And it's like, because no other I don't want any mortal to have this. You would get no benefit from having access to a pool of immortality. So I trust you because you're the only person in the world who would not get the benefit of mortality and screw me over for that. And so Dracula's like, hey, pool of blood sounds great. Let's do that. And so that allegiance lasts one panel. Because Dracula's like, "Ooh, yes, blood. It's warm and street." And then Dracula's like, "But wait, something's wrong. You lied to me." And so basically, the guy's like, "I'm done with immortality. I can't die unless I die here and put my amulet into this pool of blood. It's the only way I can die. So I need you to bring me here so I can kill myself." Uh, and that will destroy the pool of blood that I brought you here. And so Dracula's like, "But wait, no, that's not what we agreed to. That's not cool." And I love this description. The blood pool heaved and vomited boiling scarlet death, convulsed upon itself, and burst full blown with savage fury. I was thrown in 1,000 directions at once, and the agony I felt as the sizzling blood lanced through me would have been more than enough to kill 100,000 humans. And it's like, this is Dracula going, I got schooled. I Dracula got schooled. So I have to big up how amazing this explosion was. It would have killed 1 billion people. Like, it would have destroyed absolutely everyone who ever lived. It was so huge, but I survived. And I want to point out at the very beginning, Dracula's like, I can't lie here. I have to be truthful. And then it's like, 100,000 people would have been killed by this explosion. Come on, buddy. Come on. And then so Dracula's like, yeah, but I was a fool. Um, and he's like, this guy also was a fool because how would anyone find immortality a curse? Immortality is awesome because I'm awesome. um, but then we go into an interesting bit about Dracula because Dracula's like, he puts the pen down and says, I'm going to go take a walk in my graveyard that's right by my crypt because, of course. And he's like, I'm a soldier. I died a soldier, a warrior. So even if I had literally infinite blood, that would have saved my thirst, but it wouldn't have made me happy because I require the hunt. And he actually talks about how um, someone who's died and been reborn again, um, it's still important to him to continue to do that hunt, even though he's nearly died several times. It's still important to him. And it's interesting because as much as we joke about how Draco's a petty bitch, that actually does explain a lot of why he does what he does. Like the
Yeah.
very first story, right? It's I can't just simulate this guy. I've got to hunt him. I've got to artificially manage the stakes so it feels like I can get that thrill of hunting someone again. And the second those stakes get out of my control, then then all gloves are off. So yeah, of course he wouldn't use lightning bolt against the 400 because he wants to feel like he's balanced against them so he can get the thrill of the hunt. But when he's surrounded by 50 humans with crosses, like, okay, fuck it, lightning bolt, bitch, I'm out. Because I like living way more than I like being a hunter.
And it goes back to that weird sort of quote marks honor and code that
Mhm.
Dracula has.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and
And I do
then,
love that he reminisces about Blade here
yeah, he
specifically, not
does.
the rest of the Blade, that motherfucker.
No, yeah, it's like, that full blade thought he'd slayed me. So it's interesting, like, and I think some of this is Marv Wolfman's like Blade is his character, so he wants to kind of make his character seem like the cool character. But we're now 6 issues in that really Blade has kind of become Dracula's arch nemesis
Yeah.
and vice versa. So and I don't think Marvel doesn't really contradict that. I mean, at this point in time, I think, Blade and Dracula being nemesis to each other is more or less established as canon. Although weirdly Dracula doesn't show up in the films, but
He
I don't
does.
think he does. He does?
He
I don't
does.
remember.
It's
Okay.
it's the worst of the trilogy where Dracula shows up.
Oh. No, it's
He
mostly
shows up in
Frost.
3.
I'm used to him battling.
Yeah, Dracula shows up in Blade 3, and he goes by, like, the name Drac, and he's played by, is it Dominic Purcell?
Oh god, that's right. I had blocked that from my memory.
Yeah, I couldn't. So he's in there. Not a good version of Dracula, but he's in there.
Um, but so he's like, yeah. So other people besides Blade have gotten the better of me, and they talks about the Scotsman.
Connor MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod. Sorry, couldn't help myself.
After talking about Highlander, which, by the way, if you don't know what we're talking about, please check out the Darker Hue Patreon, where we talk about episodes once a month, and we did recently covered Highlander.
Do you like how I didn't even make that bad accent in the Highlander one, but I chose to do it
I
here
know, but you saved it for this one. I
Dracula?
appreciate it. Dude, if there's any run of comic books besides Claremontian X-Men that deserves bad accents, it is certainly Tomb of Dracula. So, but this was 1969, actually. So it's like 5 years before this comic. Um, and someone's walking in a movie. Dracula's like, "Bah, who cares about that? Um, that's stupid. Humans are stupid. I'm gonna murder this guy." And so but he's in Transylvania when this happens, and so he's like, "I've already got my coffins full of earth. They've been sent ahead to England, so I'm preparing to go to England. But first, I need to get some blood." And so, and this actually neatly solves a plot hole, because again, we didn't talk about it, but issue one, he was resurrected inside Castle Dracula, because again, the vague implication from the first issue was we may have gone from a novel to this. Now we're filling in plot holes. Like, why is he suddenly, swanning around London? It's because we had moved the action to London, but now it's he had plans to move to London, but he had to go back to his castle to get some refreshments, and there he meets the Scottish vampire hunter. Um, and they had been, uh, oh, sorry, before that, he recently traveled to the east and had legions growing in Japan, China, and Indonesia. Um, that is another piece of setup for the Doctor Sun plotline that we're not going to get to. Um, uh, but basically, his plan was, I have a long term plan. Went to the east for a while, established my legions there. Now I'm coming back here to regroup before I go to England to kill Quincy Harker, because it's been 60 years of that fool and I'm done with him. I need to take him off the board. So that's his long term range. So now we're seeing what you talked about before. This is Dracula's long term planner 100% now. He's no longer half assing it. This is retroactively, he's always been a long term planner. Um, but inside his castle, instead, there's a Scotsman in the most amazing outfit.
He's the most Scottish Scotsman that's ever was a Scotsman in this episode,
Right.
in this issue.
Right.
He's only missing haggis, Eddie. That is the only thing I think this guy does not have on him.
If he had a sharpened set of bagpipes, is about the other way we could have possibly been more Scottish. Hit him with a golf club. I mean, it's oh god,
Ridiculous.
this outfit makes the Sixth Doctor's outfit look tame. It has every color. I feel so bad for the colorist. It's like, okay, we need your colors outfit. And he's just like, I'm just gonna use every color. Is that cool? It's like, whatever.
And he's not even fighting with stakes. He's fighting with a fucking spear.
Yeah, yeah. And uh um his name apparently is the Scotsman, because he's only referred to as Scotsman. But apparently the Scotsman's son chased him in China some months ago, and Dracula killed him there, and so now he's come for, well, he doesn't know what happened to his son. Dracula explains, I've killed him. Um, and so Scotsman's like, uh, no, he died. I was like, oh, you didn't turn vampires? No, because he was holding a crucifix. But you have no cross, so I can murder you or turn you into a vampire. Um, and so it's like, Harker trained me. It's like, fuck Harker. I'm gonna take you out. And so they fight, and then because, like you said, there's this giant, long spear stake thing, uh, he actually manages to stake Dracula's chest. And so uh, he's like, okay, no, I've done it for my son, Eric. I defend him. He's like, okay, you've defeated me. I have a stake in my chest. Previously, when Blade put a knife in his chest, Dracula dropped immediately. Well, not immediately, because he had moments to give mental command before he fell, but still, it was pretty fast.
Yeah, the
Here, he has
second,
time to pick the Scotsman up and throw him into a pit.
and then wander downstairs. But he
Right,
explains it. If only he had been a little closer.
right. But it does actually kill him. It just takes longer. Um, so again, it's the retroactively brings Blade back up. Blade was so accurate, he could throw a knife and hit him exactly where he needed to in the heart, because apparently there's not much wiggle room in where you stake Dracula. Now we know that. So Blade looks even cooler as a result, because he'll do that right out of the gate.
Which doesn't detract from the fact that this Scotsman took Dracula down.
Yeah,
Although I love the fact that I want a pit in my house, Eddie, where I throw all of my enemies so they perish.
right?
A very specific pit in one room. He picked him up, wandered over to the pit room, and threw him in it.
Right. And this is my pit of death. It's a feature in the house. This is the kitchen. This is the breakfast nook. This is the pit of death. That's it was designed for that purpose. Um. So we have another piece which is interesting, and now that we've talked it through, at the time I didn't understand this detail a lot, but kind of glossed over it. But I think that may be relevant. Is like he wakes his way back to his coffin containing soil. He says, "Only there can I die in peace and wait for the day where Dracula may live again." Now, the last issue where he died, they were seen carrying a coffin with him. He's in a coffin the whole time. So it might be that if Dracula dies and is able to put his body into a coffin with the soil, he doesn't permanently die.
That I don't like that at all because that adds too many weird loopholes to I've died many times or it was like the Phoenix. How was he able to get to his coffin every single time?
Right. Otherwise, I don't understand the purpose of dying in his coffin. So I agree. It's the now we're in the again, Wolfman's trying to establish the rules for everything, but it's now just invoking more questions. It's just like, okay, it's cool, but why? Um, but and that's the end of the comic. But before the ends, he's like, I vowed. Oh, Clifton Graves was apparently the Scotsman's name. We finally find out what his name is. Um, never again. He vowed to himself, he never let himself die, which he kept for 3 whole years, or not whole 3 years, like the time from his resurrection to now, which is like less than a year. Um, but Blade slayed him. So again, Blade specifically is like, he's the one to stop
Clifton
me.
Graves isn't the Scotsman. This Clifton Graves was like the dude that found him in issue 1 and pulled it out that died in the boat
Oh, right,
explosion.
yes, right, okay, yes, that's it, Graves. Yeah, okay, so no, it's not. This guy's not Clifton Graves. Clifton Graves, right, was the guy who blew up in a boat. I completely forgot that. It's been a while since we talked about him. Um, but no,
That
it
guy was
really
just
reframes.
literally the Scotsman.
Right. But they really framed that Blade is his nemesis now. So he still talks about how Quincy was his antagonist for 60 years, but Blade has pretty quickly shifted to filling that role now.
Well, come on. If Quincy's been fighting for 60 years and hasn't killed him, and they started working with this guy 3 weeks ago that's killed him, that guy moves pretty high up the hate list.
Right. It's like, I'll get back to you. I mean, we'll settle our beef, but this guy's more now on my radar. And then we ends with Dracula talking about nothing will stop him from rising from his tomb, the Tomb of Dracula, if you will. Yes.
The essential piece.
Next issue is Death's Hands, but we won't talk about that because we're not going to cover that.
Unless people really love this Tomb of Dracula run more than anything else we've done, and they can request more Tomb of Dracula.
Right. Um, So I have 2 questions for you. The first one, you'll probably expect. Having come to these relatively fresh, what do you think of Tomb of Dracula?
Blade is a bad mother.
He
Hush your mouth.
is.
I'm just talking about Blade. Um, on
He
the
is.
whole, I've enjoyed them. It was
Mhm,
interesting to see it. I probably will not go back and reread them.
mhm. I can see that. My second question is, since you're probably not gonna read them, do you want to know where the Doctor Son storyline goes?
Yes, because I will never read it otherwise. I'd
Okay,
probably Wikipedia it, but it's not the same.
okay. Um, Doctor Son is trying to
Wait.
yep,
If anyone doesn't want to know, spoiler.
right, okay. If anyone wants to know, after this, you'll get some of my thoughts, which you've already heard, and then we'll talk about how to find this natural, so you can stop now and you won't miss anything. Um, Doctor Son is trying to collect all of the other vampires that Dracula has created and abandoned to turn them into vampire hunters to track him down. So the motorcycle guy that Dracula killed, he comes back as
Yeah,
a vampire hunter. Right.
it's a good plan,
The reason for this,
unless you can control them.
the reason for this is because he wants to acquire Dracula's body because Doctor Son is a brain in a jar. When he fails to get Dracula's body, Doctor Son then builds himself a robotic body, which is not a full robot head. It's literally just a brain in a jar with arms and legs attached. So it's still a brain in a jar, just happens to have a robot body stuck on the bottom of it. And then when that fails, Dracula has his brain sent into outer space, which Reed Richards finds, doesn't realize who he is,
You're
and
kidding.
Dr. Sun possesses Herbie, the Fantastic Four's robot.
Are you kidding me? That
I
is
am
not
not
real.
making any of this shit up. I alluded that Tomb of Dracula goes off the fucking deep end after a bit. It does.
Why doesn't he just pull a Krang and put his brain in the middle of the robot instead of on the top of it? Another
because
Teenage Mutant
Dr.
Ninja Turtles joke.
Because Dr. Sun needs people to know the injustice that happened to him that caused him to become a brain in a jar.
Oh my god.
So props to Wolfman for going, "You think I'm going a certain direction? No, it's a brain in a jar the whole fucking time." He happens to be a Chinese brain in a jar, but he's still a brain in a jar. It's like, okay, not what I expect. But it's
That just
fucking
makes me
weird,
think of
man.
all the Mythos stuff. Literally for
Yeah,
brains in jars with
it's this comic is straight up weird.
Yeah, I would have been irritated if I read all that and got to there. That was what it was.
Right. So I saved you that.
I do like
Um,
the idea though of taking Dracula's cast offs if you can stop Dracula from mind controlling them and using them as a weapon against him. I love that part of it.
right. It honestly, if it wasn't for the horribly Orientalist tropes that around that plot line, the idea of I'm going to use a bunch of my mortal minions to track down your cast-offs and turn them against you so I can steal your body and become immortal is a pretty cool storyline. Right.
Yeah.
It's just it comes with a lot of awkward trappings, and it's one of those Doctor Stone's one of those characters that it's like Z tier character. Like no one remembers, but every once in a while, someone will randomly go, "I want to jump Doctor Stone," and it's always just the most batshit stuff. So Doctor Stone has this weird, like he disappears for like decades and then comes back and just like I'm gonna do something with this guy. So it's like why this character, But he has stuck around. It's
That's
bizarre.
ridiculous. All right. So what did you think of this run having read it before?
Um, Rereading it, honestly, I think I've enjoyed it a little bit more than I did last time. I enjoyed it before, but I appreciate more Dracula as a character, as it were. Um, I do want to read Dracula Lives because maybe I'll appreciate it more this time around. But I think you're right. I think you put the nail on the head. Is like Dracula without these vampire hunters is not as much fun probably because Dracula gets so head up about these guys. So we'll see. I might be wrong. And it's just a fascinating look of Marvel trying to do something they never really done before, and watching it slide inevitably into stuff they're comfortable with. So it's fascinating, but not always. I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, but it's also like it could have been something really, really different, and it's just eventually going to become a superhero comic that happens to have Dracula in it. But on the flip side, this is why in modern day we have stuff like Dracula's Castles on the Moon because of the events of Tomb of Dracula.
Which I think I said even in the first episode of this run, I love Dracula in superhero comics. I love how he antagonizes them, how it forces him to operate somewhat differently, how he is fascinated with Storm, which goes
Mhm.
back to his own weather control powers, which could be interesting. How Spider-Man has fought Dracula with a wizard and all this other stuff. Spider-Man has teamed up with Red Sonja, and I think they may have fought Dracula together. So it's endlessly interesting and fascinating. And I think the late one of the later Avengers runs has Dracula with a vampire armor fighting the Avengers.
Right. Because Tomb of Dracula started one way and ended up getting absorbed into the larger Marvel universe, we have some of the most amazing bonkers vampire bullshit as a result of that, and I love all of that. And the early stages of Tomb of Dracula, it's just a kind of a really cool, fun horror comic. Um, and we're still in the fun zone. Like I said, I stopped reading around roughly issue 30-ish because it starts to become okay. It's Dracula defeats another human, cool, whatever. It does get a bit formulaic after a while, but then after that, when they realized we could just do whatever because Dracula's in the superhero universe now, yeah, that's when it gets fun again. Like I said, he crosses over into Doctor Strange because Doctor Strange finds the ritual that will turn literally everyone in the world into a vampire. And Dracula's like clearly has a plan involving that because he has to be at the head of that. It's not just turning all the world into vampires. He has to be in charge of all those vampires. And that's important. It's it's
Oh,
it's bonkers. But anyway, I do appreciate you taking time to go through this with me. This has been a fun, enjoyable run of 70s comics.
and like we always say, I guess if people want more of these, let us know.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
we're open to suggestions. We've got a couple other speechless runs in mind that we may or may not do one day.
Mhm. So, with all that said, if people wanted to talk to you about what comic run they want to do us next, where would they find you?
You can come to Blue Sky, I'm Darker Hue, or you can jump into the Darker Hue Discord and we'll happily chat about comics. If you want to support me, you can go to my Patreon. It's Harlem Unbounding, and you can get some cool stuff there. Or you can come buy one of my few remaining copies of Haunted West. It's on my website.
Yeah, get them while you can. You can find me on Blue Sky as pugsteady.com. That's also my website. Like Chris said, definitely let us know on the Discord if you want us to do another run of comics. Um, Chris mentioned it in passing, but if you want to read these yourself, probably the easiest way to do is to do the Marvel Unlimited app. I believe most of the entire run is on there, but certainly the run we did is on there because that's how Chris read it. But I believe it goes to like issue like 40-ish or something at least on the Marvel app last time I checked. But also you can get the collection, which I've been reading, which has the Dracula Lives stuff, which again, we'll see if it's any good. Don't know. But with that, after this, what are we doing after this, Chris?
We don't know. It is up in the air. It could be anything. We have many ideas
Big.
floating around.
Tune in next week to find out.